Joe Rogan has commented on Joel Osteen, and this has caused a significant reaction in various discussions happening across the public sphere. Joe Rogan is known for his outspoken and fearless style, often leaving his fans and critics buzzing with his bold moves. This has sparked curiosity about what could have driven this controversial figure in the modern religious sphere to make such a dramatic revelation. The details of this jaw-dropping revelation are sure to be gripping. While you may be familiar with Rogan's roles as a UFC commentator, stand-up comedian, former host of Fear Factor, or renowned podcaster, there is much more to his story. His TV roots and impressive martial arts background have contributed to the depth and complexity of his personal journey. Rogan has built an empire through his unapologetic approach to conversation, challenging conventional views and delving into a wide range of topics, from science and culture to philosophy and beyond. His diverse experiences have made him a fascinating and polarizing figure. Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla hosted the comedy show The Man Show on Comedy Central for 5 years from 1999 to 2004. While many people remember the silly sketches, not everyone knows that Kimmel and Carolla were not the only hosts. Joe Rogan and fellow comedian Doug Stanhope took over the last 2 seasons of the show. However, Rogan and Stanhope had a difficult time with the show. Although they were offered a large amount of money, they felt the show was terrible, and that Comedy Central executive Zoe Fredman rarely let them do what they wanted, often choosing less funny alternatives instead. Rogan believed a female executive shouldn't have been in charge of a show designed for and marketed to men. However, he still managed to accomplish things like introducing Fear Factor's official taste tester, Josh Silberman, who ate boiled pig uterus while receiving a massage. The show also featured segments like The Wheel of Destiny and other content that likely contributed to its discontinuation. You've probably seen at least one episode of Fear Factor hosted by Rogan, but did you see the one where he almost had to restrain a particularly unruly contestant? A notorious trash-talking contestant provoked and irritated fellow participants Jonathan and Victoria. Victoria, having had enough of the verbal abuse, punched the obnoxious and loud contestant, who was playing the show's host. Rogan became very angry, telling Victoria that while she and her husband can fight each other, she cannot physically assault other contestants. Jonathan, Victoria's husband, decided to defend his wife and confronted Rogan. Unsurprisingly, this did not end well for Jonathan, although it could have been much worse. Rogan ended up restraining the contestant by grabbing the back of his head. Joe Rogan, known for his involvement in the UFC and fascination with conspiracy theories, once claimed he was ready to attack someone's brain with a knee strike. Fortunately, the individual's brain remained intact, though Rogan should have been more cautious about picking a fight with a skilled martial artist. Rogan's interests extend beyond fighting and comedy, as he has extensively explored and promoted various conspiracy theories on his long-running podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. In 2009, Rogan and his friend Brian Redband created the show in response to their interest in the relatively new medium of live streaming. After the tragic events in Charlottesville in 2017, Osteen remained largely silent, only posting a vague message on Facebook. One of the biggest challenges we all face is getting along with people, as we all have different personalities, temperaments, and backgrounds. When someone disagrees with us or doesn't act the way we want, it's easy to get into conflicts, arguments, and try to convince them they're wrong. However, we need to be the bigger person and not engage, even if they are in the wrong. According to the report, Austin and Lakewood Church are being sued by a family who alleges that a church staff member forcefully threw a baby girl's car seat off a church pew, causing the child to land face first on the floor while still strapped in, resulting in severe physical and emotional harm. The church in Austin have claimed they are not liable for the incident, citing a law that provides legal protection for charitable organizations. The church reportedly paid the Wern family $115,000 despite claiming there was no wrongdoing and the allegations were completely fabricated. When talk show host Larry King asked about abortion and same-sex marriage in a 2005 interview, Austin said he doesn't discuss those topics. However, in a 2011 interview with Piers Morgan, Austin stated that while the scripture considers homosexuality a sin, he doesn't condemn or attack homosexuals. When Morgan asked if Austin's views on same-sex marriage and homosexuality had changed, the preacher said his beliefs remained the same, and he's not against anything, but his stance is based on scripture. After Hurricane Harvey ravaged Houston in 2017, Joel Joel Osteen faced criticism. First, people were outraged that his church did not offer shelter to evacuees whose homes were destroyed by the storm. Then, people criticized Osteen's tone-deaf comments to those evacuees once they were at the church. Telling people who lost their homes to flooding to stay positive was considered insensitive. Osteen had already received swift backlash on social media for not immediately opening up his church to displaced victims, and he likely thought the criticism would soon blow over. The preacher urged the displaced Houston residents to avoid dwelling on their misfortunes or questioning why the tragic events occurred. Instead, he encouraged them to maintain a positive mindset and trust that God will guide them through this difficult situation. Some interpreted his message as telling people to stop complaining, regardless of the controversy surrounding the large size of his church or his actions during the Hurricane Harvey aftermath. Nonetheless, Lakewood Church, led by Joel Osteen, continued to be the subject of significant media attention. Even in December 2021, the Lakewood Church had a hidden secret within its walls that remained undiscovered until recently. In 2014, the church reported the theft of $600,000 in cash and checks from a safe. Years later, in 2021, a plumber working at the church made a surprising discovery. While fixing a loose toilet, the plumber found around 500 envelopes hidden behind the wall, containing the missing cash and checks from the 2014 theft. The plumber immediately informed the church's maintenance supervisor about his unexpected find. The church stated that the missing money was insured, and they were collaborating with the local police and their insurance company to recover the stolen funds. In a 2005 interview on Larry King Live, Tin, who lacked formal seminary training, faced criticism for seemingly contradicting himself when King asked if he believed people of other faiths who don't believe in Jesus would go to heaven. Tin's response was somewhat unclear, as he expressed caution about declaring who would or wouldn't go to heaven, stating his beliefs based on Christian teachings. Osteen said he leaves it to God to judge who goes to heaven and hell, and added that he believes it's about having a relationship with Jesus, but he won't force that belief on others if they don't want to accept it. Later, Osteen published a letter on his website, apologizing for any perceived ambiguity and stating that he firmly believes having a personal relationship with Jesus is the only way to heaven. Osteen clarified that he never intended to leave any doubt about his beliefs and who he serves. In May 2017, Osteen attended his son's graduation at the University of Texas. While Osteen and his son were taking a photo, they made the school's iconic "Hook 'em Horns" hand gesture, which is meant to mimic the university's Longhorn mascot. However, this action led some of the preacher's followers to believe he was worshiping the devil. Twitter users criticized Osteen, with one stating that the gesture sent a very bad signal, and another suggesting a simple thumbs up would have been more appropriate. Amid the controversies and criticism, a significant development occurred when Joe Rogan addressed Joel Osteen on his show, sparking a heated debate. The Joe Rogan podcast addressed a notable moment when he criticized the actions, or lack thereof, of megachurch pastor Joel Osteen following Hurricane Harvey. Osteen, the pastor of Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, faced criticism for initially failing to open the doors of his 16,000-seat megachurch to provide shelter for those displaced by the devastating hurricane while it caused widespread damage in Houston, leaving thousands homeless and in need of assistance. Osteen's church remained closed, sparking a wave of backlash on social media, with many accusing him of failing to demonstrate the compassion and generosity he preaches. Rogan expressed his frustration and disbelief over Osteen's decision, describing it as an example of the hypocrisy sometimes observed in televangelists. Rogan strongly criticized Osteen, questioning how someone who claims to serve God and help others could turn away people in need during a crisis. Rogan pointed out that Osteen has a massive church that's like a stadium, yet people were drowning and Osteen couldn't open the doors. Rogan suggested that actions like Osteen's undermine the trust people place in religious leaders and institutions. Rogan's comments resonated with his audience, many of whom shared his anger and disappointment. Osteen's initial response to the criticism, claiming the church was inaccessible due to flooding, was undercut by photos showing the building appeared dry and unharmed, fueling accusations that Osteen was reluctant to open the church. Rogan believed the explanations for the church's initial lack of response to the hurricane were more about appearances or logistical issues rather than genuine safety concerns. He argued that the church was more focused on maintaining its image and public perception than on prioritizing the urgent needs of the community in the aftermath of the disaster. Rogan contended that the church's hesitation to open its doors and provide shelter, supplies, and support was a reflection of its detachment from the struggles of the people it claimed to serve. Despite the public backlash and criticism, the church eventually opened its doors to offer assistance. However, the damage to its reputation had already been done. Rogan argued that the church's belated action highlighted a larger problem: the disconnect between the grand rhetoric and lofty promises of religious institutions and their actual commitment to serving the community in times of crisis. Rogan's criticism also extended to broader concerns about the wealth and behavior of some televangelists. He pointed out the stark contrast between the church's leader, who lived in a multi-million-dollar mansion, and the reported $90 million annual budget of the church. Rogan questioned the priorities and values of such religious leaders, who seem more focused on personal affluence than on the well-being of their congregants and the larger community. Rogan believed that true leaders, especially those in positions of religious authority, should be proactive and unwavering in their commitment to helping their communities, particularly during times of great need and adversity. He argued that the church's delayed response and the extravagant lifestyle of its leader undermined the very principles of compassion, selflessness, and service that are at the core of religious teachings. Rogan's critique highlighted the growing disconnect between the public's perception of religious institutions and the reality of their actions, or lack thereof. He called for a fundamental shift in the priorities and values of religious leaders, urging them to prioritize the needs of their communities and to lead by example, rather than by the accumulation of wealth and the pursuit of personal comfort. Joe Rogan, the popular podcast host, has raised thought-provoking questions about the lifestyles of some prominent Christian pastors and their alignment with core Christian values. In his outspoken manner, Rogan has highlighted the growing disparity between the lavish living of these religious leaders and the struggles faced by the congregations they serve. Rogan's critique has struck a chord, as it underscores the importance of public figures, especially those in positions of moral authority, being held accountable for their actions and the way they live out the beliefs they preach. The controversy surrounding Pastor Joel Osteen's delayed response during the devastating Hurricane Harvey further fueled discussions about the responsibilities of faith leaders to support their communities in times of crisis. Many have argued that the extravagant homes, private jets, and designer wardrobes of some prominent pastors appeared to be at odds with the teachings of Jesus, who emphasized humility, simplicity, and serving the less fortunate. These pastors have been accused of prioritizing their own material wealth and comfort over the spiritual needs and welfare of their congregants. The debate has sparked a deeper examination of the role of the contemporary megachurch movement and the influence of prosperity gospel teachings, which have been criticized for promoting a distorted view of Christianity that focuses more on financial blessings than on selfless service and sacrificial love. Some argue that this shift has led to a growing disconnect between the pulpit and the pew, where the daily struggles of parishioners are not always reflected in the lifestyles of their spiritual leaders. Rogan's willingness to challenge the status quo and call for greater accountability has resonated with many who feel that the church should be a beacon of moral integrity and a source of support for the marginalized and downtrodden. As the debate continues, it raises important questions about the true nature of Christian leadership and the extent to which religious institutions should be held to the same standards of ethical and transparent conduct as other public organizations. This episode highlighted the critical importance of carefully scrutinizing the actions and behaviors of those in positions of power and influence, particularly prominent religious leaders who wield significant authority and sway over their followers. As the podcast host often emphasizes, it is ultimately not just the words that one speaks, but the concrete actions and conduct that truly define one's character and commitment. The case of Joel Osteen, the high-profile televangelist and senior pastor of the Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, and his response to the devastating Hurricane Harvey sparked a vital and much-needed public dialogue about the complex issues of leadership, accountability, and the true meaning of Christian service and compassion. Osteen's lavish personal lifestyle, including his ownership of a palatial $10.5 million mansion and a reported personal net worth estimated at around $100 million, has been a persistent point of contention and criticism from many observers. Osteen's opulent way of living appears to stand in stark contrast to the humble teachings and values espoused within the Christian faith, which emphasize the importance of simplicity, self-sacrifice, and a duty to assist and uplift the less fortunate members of society. While Osteen has claimed that his substantial personal wealth is derived primarily from the sales of his popular self-help books, rather than from church donations, this explanation has done little to allay the public's concerns and skepticism. Many have openly questioned whether it is truly truly appropriate and justifiable for a prominent religious leader who is entrusted with the spiritual guidance of millions to be residing in such extravagant and lavish surroundings while simultaneously preaching messages centered on the virtues of humility, sacrifice, and providing aid and support to the marginalized and disadvantaged. This apparent disconnect between Osteen's words and deeds has fueled an important debate about the importance of transparency, integrity, and authentic Christian witness in positions of religious authority. Osteen, a prominent public figure, has been the subject of much scrutiny lately due to the apparent opulence of his lifestyle. His lavish possessions, such as expensive cars and designer attire, as well as his frequent attendance at high-profile social events, have led many of his followers to question whether he truly understands the challenges and struggles they face in their daily lives. The perceived disconnect between Osteen's lavish lifestyle and the daily struggles faced by his followers has ignited a broader discussion about the role of wealth and privilege within the public domain. Some have argued that his ostentatious display of material wealth and opulence undermines his ability to truly empathize with and connect to the people he aims to serve, calling into question the authenticity of his message and leadership. They contend that such a lifestyle creates an insurmountable barrier between the preacher and his congregation, diminishing his credibility and effectiveness as a spiritual guide. On the other hand, Osteen's defenders have asserted that he has every right to enjoy the fruits of his labor and reap the rewards of his professional success. They argue that his personal wealth is a testament to his hard work, entrepreneurial savvy, and the generosity of his followers, and should not be used to discredit his spiritual teachings or call into doubt his dedication to his flock. These supporters maintain that a leader's worth should be measured not by their material possessions, but by the positive impact they have on the lives of those they serve. Amidst this ongoing and increasingly polarized debate, the comments made by renowned podcaster Joe Rogan regarding fellow religious leader Joel Osteen's recent revelations have added another layer of complexity to the discussion. Rogan's perspective, which has been variously described as both insightful and controversial, has reignited the long-standing debate around the intricate relationship between wealth, faith, and public influence. Rogan's criticism of Osteen's lavish lifestyle and the perceived disconnect between the prosperity gospel preached from the pulpit and the daily realities faced by his congregants has struck a chord with many. His words have revived discussions about the role of money, power, and privilege within the realm of organized religion, and the ethical implications of religious leaders amassing vast personal fortunes. This latest development has further intensified the debate surrounding the intersection of wealth, spirituality, and public leadership, as observers grapple with questions of authenticity, integrity, and the appropriate use of resources entrusted to those in positions of influence. As the discussion continues to unfold, it remains to be seen how these complex issues will be navigated and resolved, with the public closely watching the conduct and the choices made by those who claim to guide them on matters of faith and morality. Rogan's comments, which have been widely discussed and analyzed, have prompted many to re-examine the role of religious leaders and their relationship with their followers. The controversy sparked by Rogan's remarks has shed light on the complex and often nuanced dynamics between spiritual figures and their congregations. Some have praised Rogan's willingness to challenge the status quo and question the authenticity of certain religious leaders, viewing his comments as a necessary wake-up call to the faithful. They argue that Rogan's criticisms have pushed people to think more critically about the motivations and lifestyles of those who claim to provide spiritual guidance. These supporters believe that Rogan's remarks have encouraged a much-needed conversation about the potential for abuse of power and the importance of holding religious figures accountable for their actions. On the other hand, others have criticized Rogan's remarks as being overly cynical or dismissive of the genuine spiritual and emotional needs of Osteen's followers. They contend that Rogan's comments fail to recognize the profound impact that inspirational religious leaders can have on the lives of their adherents. These critics argue that the relationship between a religious figure and their followers is often deeply personal and transformative, and that Rogan's outsider perspective fails to fully appreciate the complexity of these bonds. Ultimately, the discussion surrounding Osteen's lifestyle and Rogan's comments on Osteen's revelations highlights the complex and often contentious nature of the relationship between public figures, their wealth, and their perceived connection with the people they serve. As the debate continues, it remains to be seen how these issues will be addressed and resolved in the years to come, with both sides offering valuable perspectives on the role of religious leadership in modern society. Furthermore, the ongoing discussion surrounding Rogan's comments has also sparked a broader conversation about the intersection of faith, wealth, and public influence. Some commentators have argued that Rogan's criticisms touch on a wider societal concern about the potential for religious leaders to amass significant personal wealth and political power, while simultaneously claiming to serve the spiritual needs of their followers. These concerns have led to calls for greater transparency and accountability within religious institutions, as well as a deeper examination of the ethical responsibilities that come with positions of spiritual and social influence. As the debate continues, it will be crucial for both religious leaders and their critics to engage in respectful and nuanced dialogue, with the ultimate goal of fostering a more just and equitable relationship between religious figures and their communities. You can share your opinions in the comments section below. Additionally, there are more captivating videos available for you to explore by clicking on the cards displayed on your screen.